Hello, this is Pastor Matthew Woods from Grace Lutheran Church in New Albany, Indiana, and this is the weekly devotion for April 28, 2025. Today's title, Happy Birthday, Dad. This week my dad turns 80 years old, 80. Born and raised in Michigan, he went on to become an engineer. He worked for the Bell companies, married mom, raised 3 kids. So that got me thinking, 80 years. 80 years of life. Who in the Bible was 80 years old? Well, we know that, Abraham, he set out, around a little before that, and at 80 years old, he didn't even have kids yet. And we think about Moses. Moses was 80 years old when he was standing before Pharaoh. That's a good way to go to 80. But one less familiar, the one I want to talk about today, is a fellow by the name of Barzillai. You say, who? Well, Barzillai is called Barzillai the Gileadite. He's mentioned 10 times in the Old Testament, yet most of us have probably not heard of him before. He'd probably be embarrassed if he was mentioned at all, in fact, in Scripture, not worthy of it. When you read about him, you find that he's a humble man and extremely loyal to David. He's extremely generous for the needs that are out there for family, for friends, for servants, and for David particularly when David had to run away from Absalom when Absalom was in revolt. He had a brief exile, during that time, and Barzillai, the Gileadite, helped him. So when it comes to 2 Samuel chapter 17:27, we learn a lot more about him. We learn that he was a wealthy man from Rogelim and Gilead. And during David's brief exile, Barzillai, with 2 other guys, got all their resources together, and I quote verses 27 following, brought bedding and bowls and articles of pottery. They also brought wheat and barley, flour and roasted grain, beans and lentils, honey and curds, sheep and cheese from cow's milk for David and all of his people. Literally, they brought enough to feed an entire army, truckloads of stuff, all to help out the king in his moment of need. Afterwards, when Absalom was defeated and people were going home back across the Jordan River, in 2 Samuel 19:32, David meets up again with Barzillai on his way back to Jerusalem. He meets him at the riverside. David offers to take Barzillai with him over to the king's castle to reward him for being so faithful to him. Then we go on to 2 Samuel chapter 19. After the war is over, after Absalom has been defeated, right? David meets with everybody before he crosses back over the Jordan to go back home. And one of those, again, is Barzillai. And he wants to thank him. He says, well, come with me, and I'll take you to the king's table, and we'll reward you for your faithfulness. But Barzillai humbly and gently refuses. He says, I'm too old for that. I don't need all of that. I don't need all those rewards. God has blessed me. But Barzillai, he goes on to say, however, even though I don't need them, I would encourage you to reward my servant Kimham. Let him cross over with you in my stead, and let him be rewarded for those things. Do for him what you do for me. Kimham, then, we know, goes with David and is, of course, rewarded for what his family had done. Barzillai, rather, he stays home, he bids a farewell, and goes back to his family happily to spend the rest of his days there back at home. Now, after Barzillai's death, he's mentioned again 3 more times. In Ezra chapter 2, verse 61, Nehemiah and Nehemiah 7:63, he is mentioned as part of the Jewish descendants there in the line. In the passage, Barzillai is called the Gileadite, okay? Because another man, also, by the way, wore the same name, Barzillai, just happens to be one who married Barzillai's daughter, and it was a son-in-law, but you don't take a name on like that unless you have some honor and respect for that name. My grandson, my youngest grandson, His middle name is James, named after my dad. Well, that's because it's someone we respect and honor and love, right? And that's the only reason you do that kind of thing. So we see that Barzillai's name is well respected and well loved. In fact, we also hear in 1 Kings chapters 2:7, David is on his deathbed and he's telling Solomon, here's what I want you to remember. Remember the descendants of Barzillai and have them eat at your table, which is a huge honor. So he said, they stood by me in my time of trouble. So you see, Barzillai is a man of legacy, a legacy that became well respected, well thought of, and one to be emulated by others in later generations. And David wanted to make sure of that. Now, Barzillai is a man who remains humble. He takes a humble place in Scripture, much like John the Baptist, right? He is to Jesus, where he says, he must become greater and I must become less. So Barzillai has sort of that same mindset to stand back and let the king be in the spotlight. Even at 80, he used his gifts to benefit David and his own family in Gilead, and even his servants. He used it to help others. He was generous that way. And instead of going on with David, he sends his servant. He decides to go back to his family instead. He'd rather be with his family than the king. This is the legacy of one who will be there in difficult times and through thick and thin. He's well remembered and should be. Now, Dad is, my mind, very similar to Barzillai. No, he isn't wealthy. He hasn't won the lottery by any stretch, but he is generous and he gives what he can. If he had a way to help you, he would try, especially if that means researching something. Oh, he loves to research stuff, and he's good at it. He can find lots of details about stuff. He's been a man who regularly stood by others when they needed him. He's certainly a man who's been faithful to Mom and us, the family. He's also a man of principle, even when everything seemed against him. I wish I could tell you that story. He is a man who likes to fix things and make things and engineer things for others. Just recently, he built a little glider chair, made it out of walnut, but he designed it on the computer, put it on the wood, cut it all out, designed it from scratch, even wove up the back and the seat and scaled it down so that the little ones, the toddlers, can sit in it. And to his great joy, they took right to it. Of course, they loved it. He is a man who likes diving into the scriptures and diving into the depths of what they mean. When it comes to birthdays, his biggest wish is to be with everyone, to be with the family. Surely he would get along with Barzillai quite well, just fine. I think I would too, frankly. The two seem very similar in their character and in their faith and in their style of things. He doesn't need the spotlight, and he isn't one to put attention on himself. In fact, this video might make him a little unsettled by itself. But he's content to stand back and let the Lord be glorified in his life. That's Dad. Thanks, Dad, for that. I appreciate that. Thank you for your Barzillai legacy. Happy 80th birthday. The Lord be with you all. Thanks for listening today. We appreciate that, and thanks for being with us. If you see Dad, tell him happy birthday for me. Until then, we'll see you next week. In the meantime, Lord bless you. Bye-bye.